Hello ladies and gents, this is another video brought to you by Ants Hood, and today I'll be doing an update of my Phodolinoda and are they having a die-off. But before I do that, I've made some change to their setups. Now if you guys cast your mind back, you remember that their setup looked a bit like this. Now for ages I've been wanting to change this setup because it's a bit of a sprawling mess. I've got a long tube going around there to the outworld in the back, which you can't really see. I've got a smaller outworld there, I've got the air den nest there, and I've obviously got these double stacked MS 5.5s off Wakushi as well. I'll put a link in the top right corner now so you guys can check out the playlist for the Phodolis if you haven't caught up to speed with them yet. So while you guys are watching them finish off this cockroach, I'll explain some bits and bobs that I didn't actually record. Now I didn't record me tidying up the nest either, and I'll also explain somewhat of the die-off. And I know what you're thinking, Hood, your cover photo showing plenty of brood there mate, what are you talking about? Well, I have had quite a significant die-off to be honest, and you'll see that when I'll show you some footage in the nest, but I also want you to count the queens as well, because I think the queens have got a big part to play in this because I've got so many of them. But anyway, you guys know that whenever they were in the outworld, they were swarming the outworld, and it was difficult for me to clean it out, it was difficult for me to get my feeders out and all that, but activity in the outworld practically ceased. I was putting food out, they weren't going for it, and the piles of dead were mounding up. They were using one of the tubes to the top nest on the double decker as a bin. They'd pretty much cleared out the air den, but and using it as a trash as well, and there was thousands of dead. I even managed to clean out all the dead that were in the outworld, which were piling up. Now, that's quite normal for Phodolis because workers don't live that long. The small workers especially only live a couple of months, so if you don't keep the regular top up of brood coming through from the queens, then you could have a die-off, and I think that's what's gone on here. So I seen an opportunity to get the whole setup tidied up, so I removed the old small outworld, which just uses the trash as well, removed the air den because that was just being used as trash. I got the opportunity to clean out most of the dead from the tubing, and the big tubing that went around to the outworld, I significantly shortened that, and I think that's made a big difference to be honest. So you guys that are on my Instagram account, you'll know that you've seen this before, and that's what it was at the top, a sprawling mess, and now it's much tidier. Here's a better picture of it now. As you can see, I've really tidied it up, but I think significantly, and I think this has made a big difference to be fair, I've shortened the route from the nest to the outworld. And as soon as I did that, and then I put some food in the outworld, they swarmed it like they used to. So I think that long tube may have stopped them going into the outworld somewhat. I don't know, but there has been a significant difference in activity in the outworld since it's been shortened. Now when it comes to the die-off, this is what I'm talking about, because if you remember rightly, the top of the double decker, which this is, it was full of ants, and yes, it's got a nice healthy pile of brood there, which is cool, but there is bags and bags of space. And the situation in the bottom nest, which is this one here, isn't very good either. Yes, there is some brood in there, not a lot to be fair, worryingly so, but I've also got plenty of space in here too. If we take a close-up look in the top nest, let's play a little game where we'll count every time we see a wingless queen, because I've got a lot. As you can see, there is a nice pile of brood here, which is great, but it was nowhere near the levels it used to be as I was growing up to 4,000. I do think this has got something to do with the amount of queens that I've got as well. Now the reason I say that is because queens take a tremendous amount of resources to grow and to maintain, and the wingless ones don't contribute at all anyway. And I also experienced something similar with my Nikos, and there's loads of fresh eggs there, which is cool with my Nikos, because there's a queen just there as well, wingless queen, that's one. Because when they started producing males, then their numbers started to drop off and the brood started to drop off. Now I'm not sure if it's a natural ant cycle or what, but it is a point of concern for me, and I don't know. I am doing the same treatment with my Nikos with these guys. I'm upping their protein, and I think the brood's starting to increase again, so maybe that's it. I will put a disclaimer for this bit of a wingless queen count, is they're difficult to spot. They could be hiding, they could be mistaken for majors or vice versa, so this is going to be a rough count. Plus I'm not going to get them all because some queens will be lurking in the tubing and stuff, which I didn't do. It's got eggs stuck to its butt, did you see that? I don't know why I find that funny, I'm such a child. What is also interesting about the queens as well is I've noticed them in the trash but when they've died, but they've still got their wings attached. I've not noticed any of the queens in there with no wings yet. So does this tell me that they're breeding in the nest? I don't know, because Phodolinodas aren't really known, should I say, for their inbreeding in the nest and such. And I also have seen some interesting behaviour from the queens, which I haven't captured on footage because I was drinking last night on Discord with my Patreons, talking rubbish, and I mentioned there that the queens, I've noticed when there's a new kill, some of them tend to rush out, which kind of got me thinking, are they like the, I can't think what they're called now, European fire ants, Myrmecorubras for example, which will produce queens, but they produce queens like a rate of knots anyway, and they don't live very long. But if they're not fertile, they'll act as large workers and go out and forage and collect food. So is it the same situation with these guys? I don't know. Now if we move on to the bottom nest, you'll see the counter just keeps going up and up. Keep an eye on that. I think you'll be surprised, because I certainly was. Anyway, as we look into this nest, you'll see that most of the queens, wingless and winged queens, are there, but there isn't a massive amount of brood considering how many queens are there. Already I'm up to 12 and 2 are in the top part of it. So are they reproducing? I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you the total number of queens that I do end up with, that must be a massive drain on the colony. And I think that's why I've had to die off, because there's loads, just loads. And if they're not actually reproducing, like I don't think they are, then they're just wasted mouths. They're just taking the food that could go towards the brood, for example, or the queens that are actually reproducing. But like I said, I don't know. If we continue to look, you can see I've got loads and loads and loads of wings here, winged males and females running around. And if you do cut around, there is some fresh batch of eggs there you just seen, just there. And so that's kind of telling me that there is at least one queen down here that's reproducing. I think what they're doing is that they're producing the eggs and they're taking it to the top nest where most of the nursery seems to be. And that would explain why there's not much brood down here though. But like I said, there is a lot of queens and I would expect there to be so much more brood, or eggs at least anyway. So I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure why they've kept so many queens, to be honest, either, because look at the score already, it's 36 and it's about to go up even more. There we go. But there is still some scattered brood around here as well, and some eggs just off screen then just a second ago. So they have got some brood down here, but it's still not a major amount. I mean, I would have more expected to have more eggs than brood if they're moving it up to the top than with all these queens and pumping it out. And what's really interesting here as well is you can actually see them chowing down on a drone. Now the queen looks like she's actually feeding off of the drone, and if that's the case then she's taking protein, and the only reason a queen's going to take protein like that is if she's going to reproduce or produce eggs and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, her wings have gone, so she's obviously potentially mated already. So is she Is she a reproductive? I just don't know. And as we track over as well, which you'll see us do in a second, here we go, you can actually see there is some eggs here as well, and it seems that she's one of a couple of the queens over this side. Are these her eggs? Well, there's another queen there, maybe they're hers, but she's got a swollen up back end as well, so I wonder if she's getting ready to produce a load of eggs as well. But you can see there's a nice little pile there of small fresh eggs as well. It's, like I said, it is confusing. I don't know. So what's the total of queens I've got? 45 I counted using this footage, but guaranteed I didn't get them all, and I bet you any money there was some hiding underneath groups of ants or in the tubing which I didn't catch or film. So, but 45! Wow! Now I think the proof's going to be in the pudding if these 45 queens are all reproductives, because if I lead them to it, feed them loads and loads of protein like I'm planning to, then they should all start producing eggs. And even if they produce a small batch, the normal, for example, for each queen, I've still got 45 of them, so it's still going to be a massive amount of brood. So I think I'm going to keep an eye on that and see if it does increase or not. I'm about to show you a time lapse. I actually noticed some interesting behaviour, because when I first started watching this on the rerun, you notice how the majors are all stood aside. Now originally I thought they were actually protecting the food from any potential predators that may take it, but if you actually watch, you'll see that they're not doing that. They're actually waiting a turn to get onto the cockroach to feed off it. I mean, pretty neat that. I've never observed that behaviour before. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this update on my noders. I know it's not all great news, but then again, that's what my channel's about. It's about being real about ant keeping. No clickbait, no nothing like that. No, oh my god, dramas. Literally, this is what I'm going on. This is what I'm experiencing with my ants. So you guys could hopefully learn something from that. Do have to say a super big thanks to all my Patreon supporters as well. So a super big thank you to Adrian, Antantics, Anton Rock, Antimatter, David, PJ Grant and Wakushi. It is much appreciated. If you want to become a patron as well, you'll find a link in my description below. But anyway, I will stop talking rubbish now. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye for now.